Good morning to most, good afternoon to others, and good evening to our viewing audience across the pond. I am your host, Jason Miles, and welcome to another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. Briefly, if you're new to the channel, please hit like, please hit subscribe, as we are constantly adding new shows and doing cross streams with other channels. Just recently, we had our monthly Mau Mau Hour with my homie, my dog, my co-host, Pascal Robert, where he interviewed presidential candidate Cornel West and asked him the tough, burning questions that you guys have been wanting to hear from Pascal and hear the answers from the jazz man himself, Cornel West. That episode is up. You can check it out if you'd like to be part of the live audience for the Mau Mau Hour that got to ask some direct questions. There's only one way. Become a patron. For as little as $3 a month or $30 for the year, you can have access to champagne rooms, past and present, our call-in segments for the champagne room. No, that's our favorite part. Join us for movie night, which is coming up. New movie night. And of course, you can be there for the Mau Mau Hour with Pascal Robert. And of course, thank you to all the subscribers on YouTube, Twitch, and everywhere else where you get audio-only podcasts. You guys are the fuel in the TIR machine that keeps this thing chugging along. Another important cog in the TIR machine is the faceless voice of reason, the person that keeps me sane while I do this, M. Toussaint.
Hello, hello. Pleasure to be here today. If you can hear me, hit like, leave a review, all the things.
I want to say, because now I have Toussaint on the screen before we bring in our guest, I read my monologue script for bringing our guest in. Very long one. Shout out to Sinead O'Connor, who passed away this week.
That's right.
I don't know why that hit me. There's a few celebrity deaths that I really could call. There's a song of hers. She does it on Massive Attack's album. I think it's on 100th Window. Prayer for England. And it might be my favorite Sinead O'Connor song. And I've listened to it a lot as is. And I didn't realize she sang it for like... I'm one of those people that gets a CD or got a CD at that point and burned it to iTunes. So I didn't read the liner notes and didn't realize she sang that for like maybe 5 years after I heard it. Like, oh, that's Sinead O'Connor. But I was really hurt by that. I know her son committed suicide, and I still been trying to find out the cause of death, and I haven't seen it. Have you seen anything about that?
No, I haven't.
So if we get how many super chats, Toussaint?
$100 in super chats.
Then we will play Sinead O'Connor music. F you, YouTube. I should watch out saying that.
Yes, you should. Lower your voice.
I mean, a different kind of F, like forgive us.
Yeah.
Anything we've said wrong. But seriously, let's end the show with a Sinead medley. Can't talk. What do you say? What do you say to that?
Well, if it can happen, inshallah.
So not only are the two other black people on here Haitian, they're both Muslim as well.
That's right.
Damn it.
And they're Greek.
Dusty says MF Doom's family was also tight-lipped on his passing. I guess that still affects you because you're so quiet, Toussaint.
What? Can you hear me?
I can now. Were you talking before?
I was.
Oh, what were you saying? Go ahead and repeat it.
You shut up.
Okay. So do Americans feel negatively about the Biden economy? There are some mainstream media pundits that paint an all too rosy picture of the Joe Biden presidency and the party altogether. While our guest's recent Jacobin article, Americans feel negative about the Joe Biden economy because there is a lot to feel negative about, is mainly about the inability of the Biden administration in the throes of COVID-19 and post peak COVID fallout to continue pandemic protections. We're going to take a much deeper dive in our conversation about the growing frustration of citizens in blue states with Democratic Party leadership as well. From the article, more than 2 million people have lost their Medicaid coverage as of mid July since President Joe Biden unwound the pandemic emergency declaration. Many of them simply thanks to administrative errors, with millions more tipped to lose the affordable publicly provided health insurance coverage in a country where not having it can mean bankruptcy or death. The end of the declaration also triggered food stamp cuts that deprive 42 million Americans of an average of $90 a month, even as high as $250 a month. Evictions are soaring around the country, more than 50% higher than pre-pandemic average in some cities, as the protections renters enjoyed during the emergency have similarly ended. As a result, homelessness has shot up nearly 40% from last year in major cities like New York and Chicago, an understatement of the problem since cities like San Francisco and Seattle, where the crisis is at fever pitch, weren't even included in that particular account. Meanwhile, the student loan repayment pause that gave households financial breathing room to the tune of hundreds of dollars a month is now likewise kaput thanks to the White House's June debt ceiling deal. Childcare, which has gone up 220% in cost over the past 33 years and is leading women to drop out of the workforce to save money, is set to get even more expensive this September, with federal funding for providers is due to run out. Another pandemic-era welfare policy started under Donald Trump that will sunset under the current Democratic president. While the Inflation Reduction Act will eventually lower prices for some prescription drugs, when that provision kicks in 3 years from now, at the moment they're so expensive that 9 million people have failed to properly take their medication as a way to trim costs. The highest share of adults, 28%, since 2014, skipped medical treatment due to costs last year, while Obamacare premiums went up 3.4% this year after 3 consecutive years of falling. The pundits insist that all that's happening is that Americans are expressing how they feel about the economy, not what they feel about their own supposedly fantastic personal financial situations. But this isn't borne out by recent surveys. That is just a small excerpt from our guest today. Please welcome Jacobin columnist and author of a great book about Joe Biden, Yesterday's Man. Who are we bringing in today, Toussaint? You've been practicing his name for a while.
Branko Marcetic.
That was very good pronunciation.
Thank you.
It's been worked on here at TIR headquarters for some time because there's certain names that we mess up, and then we have a Slavic co-host as well who has a name that is unpronounceable. There's just so many consonants.
That is a useful thing to have, I think. A Slavic, someone Slavic in a mix to sort through the bizarre mix of consonants and vowels that make up Slavic names.
Toussaint, you want to ask the first question to get this underway?
Sure. Let me okay. Thank you for joining us here at TIR. We really appreciate it. Now, in your piece, you're focusing squarely on the failures and inadequacies of the Biden administration. Even around election time, he was being touted as a one-term president because of his mental state at the time of the election and his age. Confidence hasn't grown at all for VP Kamala Harris to potentially take Biden's seat, and it looks like he's going to be positioned to run again. What does this say for the state of the party? Also, Trump still garners headlines more because of his brash nature than his ability to govern. What does this say about the political imagination of both parties and the American people?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go for the first question. Number one, what does it say about the party? I mean, my thoughts on the Democratic Party right now are that it's at once both Obviously, it's consolidated power around Biden, and it's really just pushed back any sort of left-wing challenge. I mean, you see the way that basically every kind of left person in Congress, including Bernie Sanders, just immediately fell into line and don't want to challenge Biden. So in some sense, the establishment wing of the party is very strong and really has a hold on things. On the other hand, I think it actually paradoxically kind of points to the weakness of the party and the establishment's grip on power. I think temporarily, they have a hold on things, but I mean, the reality is, look, no one wanted Joe Biden to be the nominee. No one wants Joe Biden to be president right now. You see constant murmurings in the press from members of the party, not just other elected officials, but party officials, donors, and of course, ordinary rank and file Democratic voters. And they're all very uncertain, unenthusiastic, maybe a better word, about Biden being the nominee again. They're not sure if he's going to be actually able to take this thing over the line. And that's partly, like I said, no one wanted him to be the nominee. They got stuck with him because to stop Sanders, in the end, this guy who they were, months earlier openly questioning his mental faculties, talking about how tired he looked and everything, they had to go with him because no one else had, basically any sort of substantial non-white support. Buttigieg and Klobuchar, neither of them had, were anywhere in the South Carolina polls. And so, now they're stuck with this guy who they're not particularly sure is actually going to be the one to beat Trump. And, if he loses, it begins that entire nightmare of the last 4 years where the party was in a panic. And, I think you can you can feel the rising anxiety in the party just by the kind of number of articles and videos and people going out there already blaming not just RFK Jr. but Cornel West preemptively for Biden's loss. To me, that's always the measure of Democratic uncertainty, is when they start pointing fingers, particularly at the left, before anything's even happened. It suggests that they're, far from sure that this is not going to end in a fumble. So I know, I'm of two minds. The party establishment has a very strong hold on things, but also I think it's a very potentially temporary and tenuous hold on things. I don't know if they really have things sorted out as they think they do. The second part of your question, do you mind repeating that?
Sure. What does it say? What does this say to you about the political imagination of both parties and the American people?
Well, I mean, I'll try and keep this one shorter than the first one. I mean, I think the political imagination of the American people, I don't think is necessarily super stunted, although definitely, after what felt like an opening a possibility with the Sanders campaign and the way that campaign pushed other politicians, establishment-friendly ones, to take more bold stances, and suddenly you had an incredibly substantive policy discussion between 2019 and 2020. That has gone away, but I think if there was some sort of some sort of figure came along, or some kind of crisis event similar to the pandemic happened again to open things up and to get any sort of substantive discussion happening again, I think you would see that the American people do have quite, when when they're allowed to, they have quite an expansive political imagination. But I think, at the moment things are incredibly, straitjacketed. You have two candidates running for president who no one likes, and we're just going to be stuck in this terrible debate. There's no policy at all, on both sides. It's all about raising the prospect of terror at the other party. There's nothing actually positive being put forward by anyone. So it's, again, I'm going to give you a very annoying contradictory answer where, I think at the moment things are really stifled, but, things can change in an instant, as we saw in 2020.
That's true.
You write your book, of course. I believe it came out in 2019, or did it come out in 2020?
Very early 2020, but yeah.
Yeah, it felt like very early 2020, and I got it, and it was a hard book to put down. So you're very, very good writer.
I appreciate it.
First of all, thank you for coming on. I really appreciated that book. It really paints a picture of a figure that like time had moved past him, and also during this time, this is when Joe Biden is like fumbling all over the place in his stump speeches. Black people are just like everybody else, just a little blacker. And sometimes when I was at the pool, they talk about my legs.
One of the great political speeches of our time, the famous Wilmington pool speech. About how he loves having kids jumping
fella, don't you dare.
The crazy thing, I'll just say quickly, what's remarkable though is that I think that story is actually true. The Corn Pop saga is that Corn Pop was a real guy, it turns out. So it wasn't him just making stuff up, but nevertheless a hilarious and strange thing to tell at the opening of a municipal pool.
Yeah, there's nothing that Joe Biden did in his run up to the election that made me feel comfortable. But kind of in line with the original question, when we think about the political imagination of most voters, it's a lot of good guys and bad guys and hero worship. And we saw younger voters, maybe with an energy we haven't seen since 2008 with Obama, be very energized around Bernie Sanders. And of course, we also saw people be energized around Trump as he did win that 2016 election. How did you feel, like kind of personally, after you write this book? And we're all thinking that you're basically laying rest to this kind of tough on crime wing 90s era of the Democratic Party, war hawk era, maybe. Hopefully this burgeoning new left will take over as we have the birth of the squad. Things like Medicare for all are being touted as a policy that people actually want. Maybe we can see a public option. And then surprisingly, Joe Biden becomes not just the nominee, but the only thing that for many people is going to stand between America and fascism with a second term of Donald Trump. How did that make you feel personally?
I mean, look, 2020 was a really dispiriting year in many ways, especially that early part. I mean, it was a roller coaster because the year started out, I'm writing this book, Biden is just tanking in the polls, and the first three primaries that not do very well. I mean, the first two that was awful. I mean, it was like third and fourth, I think. So on the one hand, the year starts out looking very optimistic, and then suddenly, you get the Democratic consolidation, then you get the pandemic. Shutting everything down, basically foreclosing any attempt to, or any sort of possibility that maybe Sanders could come back. And then you just get this, kind of depressing contest between Biden and Trump. And in the meantime, you have some really exciting stuff happening in the streets, obviously, with the George Floyd protests. You also have this really scary pushback. So I know, it was a lot of different emotions. I mean, I think looking back, when I said anything can change in an instant, as 2020 showed us, I think what does make me kind of optimistic looking forward is it is depressing when you think about the kind of the political turn against basically the George Floyd movement. That does suck. There's no other way to put it. But I also think about the fact that because of the events of 2020, some really incredible things happened in American politics. I mean, Donald Trump, the most hard-right corporatist president, certainly in modern memory, signed an eviction ban into law by executive order. It's not because he's a great guy and he, loves human beings and he wants to challenge the landlords, but he did it because he wanted to win an election and he realized that people being thrown out to streets en masse was not going to be conducive to that. And so he did a very extraordinary thing, a very radical thing, a thing that even Joe Biden, the Democrat, supposed to be running to his left, actually refused for a long time to come out and support. I think he came out in support of it after Trump did it, and possibly not even then. And you had the expanded unemployment insurance that went on for nearly 2 years. You had the expansion of Medicaid. You had a whole bunch of economic protections beyond that sadly are unwinding now under Biden, which is really incredible when you think about it. But even under Biden, you had things happening that you would never have expected that man to do. I mean, the stimulus in the end that kind of ended up being the sum total of his presidency in many ways. But that very much went against his political instincts and his history. The Afghanistan withdrawal, genuinely one of the most politically courageous things I've ever seen anyone do. The fact that Joe Biden, a man who is
warhawk,
not known for
going to was it 98? He wanted to go into Iraq.
Right, yeah. And, not someone who has distinguished his career by his political courage. And, he did this thing that he, took a tremendous hit for. I mean, there's many, many, many things that I think he's done since in foreign policy that are really shameful and cowardly and terrible, don't get me wrong. But my point is that these two, craven, corporate-friendly establishment people did some pretty bold, I would even say radical things, and that I think points to and it came from the crisis, but it also came from, I think, some of the energy on the ground. It came from the way that the socialist movement has been growing and developing, and it has a lot more growing to do, of course, but I don't think any other stuff would have happened without all that. So I think I don't want to be triumphalist. There's so much going on that's wrong, but I think we need to keep that in mind, because I think it's very easy to just fall into despair and depression, and just go throw your hands up and go, whatever. But we're in a moment of kind of stasis right now, but things can happen and things do happen that all of a sudden break open the doors of possibility.
I will say I'm not as sanguine as my co-host would say about the quote George Floyd moment in 2020 as maybe somewhere, and we will get to that. So let's foreground that for a minute. In your piece, you write about the cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. These cuts are devastating. Americans aren't out in droves to defend these cuts like we saw them protest police violence or vaccines or mask wearing. While these cuts affect tens of millions of Americans, will it matter come voting time?
I think so. Look, this is part of the whole problem, why I wrote this piece. There's all these pundits are saying, why do people feel so badly about the economy? Why does Biden have such a low approval rating? The economy is going great. And on certain metrics, yes, the economy is going well. Unemployment is low. Inflation looks like it is transitory or was transitory. It's really slowed. You've had low wage earners, I think, getting the most gains under Biden. So there are things to celebrate. But the problem is, Trump made the same case, and it wasn't an unreasonable case. He said, look at the unemployment numbers, look at wage growth. Things are going well under me. And then the pandemic kind of made that all go to shit. But for a while, the guy could say that he had a pretty decent economic record. The problem is that those kind of big ticket numbers hide actually how much misery and suffering there is in the United States, and there has been for many decades. And it's great to have low unemployment. It's great to have slightly higher wages, but if you are still going bankrupt or dying because you cannot get health insurance, because you cannot afford to pay a hospital bill, you're going to feel pretty terrible about the economy. You're also going to feel terrible if you have a job, but you're not making a whole lot on it, and you don't have very good benefits. You don't have the things that most people around the world have, paid holidays and sick leave and all that kind of thing. You're not going to necessarily feel that good about your job. I mean, you could go down the line, and if you can't afford a bloody medicine to keep yourself healthy and possibly alive because the price is so extortionate, are you really going to be jumping for joy about how great the unemployment numbers are? I don't think so. And that was the same under Trump. I mean, there was deep structural problems to the United States economy under Trump, and they remain under Biden because they didn't fix any of this stuff. They didn't introduce the public option like they said. This Medicare negotiation in the Inflation Reduction Act and the IRA, to negotiate drug prices. I mean, that I think comes into play in 2027, and I believe it only applies to 10 drugs. So I mean, it's great that they passed it, but I mean, when you look at it, it's kind of paltry. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think another thing that people don't talk too much about when we talk about like drug prices is people with rare diseases that are affected actually the most, because those are the drugs that you can rise up because there's not a big push like insulin, for example. I think it's like 2019, 2020. There's these conversations around insulin and people literally dying because, and you write about this, you don't mention insulin, but I know you're talking about insulin and other drugs like that. People dying because they have to ration out their insulin. So you do get a bill that in California, I believe insulin is either free or extremely inexpensive. So there's something to be said about if something becomes a big enough story, if there's enough push behind it, right, then people will act even on a bipartisan level, mainly because there is such thing as a sugar lobby, and we can't act like that's not a real thing. We're not talking about the amount of sugar that we consume as a society. We're talking about, insulin prices, right? So it's much easier to, mildly rein in insulin and say, look, I fixed Medicare. Look, I fixed medicine. Then, have a more broad discussion. Where I agree with you that, a big reason why Toussaint reached out to you was because I've been writing about kind of a similar hellscape going on in the U.S. And I looked towards, I watched the whole Mad Max series. And the first one probably being, to me, the best one. It's not as dystopian and science fiction-y, and to me kind of more depicts a similar moment that we're at, and kind of what we saw with 2020 with the protests. And again, we'll probably get to that a little bit later. But I don't know I don't believe that these cuts to poor people's services affect Americans in the voting booth like some might think. Because ultimately, the things that people come out for and protest for and scare politicians on have not been cutting SNAP and Medicaid, right? It's been abortion. When Kansas, a state as red as they get, has people coming out in droves going, no, you're not cutting, abortion. That's a bigger issue that the Democratic Party can still run on. I mean, you even have Black Republicans pushing back on Ron DeSantis for the whole, well, we're going to teach kids that slavery taught these colored folks some skills that they can take into the real world once we free them. And it seems like these kind of culture war issues are more things, are things that bring people to vote more so than protecting services, because in this country, services are looked at as more of a moral failing of one than it is something we want to protect, unless it's Social Security.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that it is true that abortion and the fear of losing abortion rights is driving voting behavior. And obviously we saw in the midterms how that, despite the fact that people felt so gloomy about the economy, abortion became such an issue that Supreme Court decision was such a big thing that people came out in droves, despite the fact that it was looking like it was going to be kind of a wash for Democrats. So I do think that that's true, and also we should take care. No, I mean, abortion is a material issue. It's not. It is a cultural one too, but it's very much a bread and butter issue in people's lives. However, I think are these cuts gonna move? The sort of the great middle, people who are feeling relatively comfortable? Maybe not. The issue for at least the Democratic Party is that every election is just decided on such a thin margin that we saw that in 2016. The people were just less enthusiastic about Hillary Clinton. They didn't have a reason to be excited and go to the polls and stand in line for goddamn hours to vote for her, and a bunch of people didn't. It was only maybe a few million people, but that was enough to shift the election. I mean, when you think about the how margins in just a few states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, a few others, how a few tens of thousands of votes end up changing the result. If people feel like, even if it's not the majority of people, but if there is a certain segment of people who really are struggling and really did depend on those extra food stamps, that Medicaid, the not being thrown out of their houses by having eviction protections, if people feel like those things have gone away and they're not coming back, and no one's even going to fight to make them come back, or if they just feel like, things are just worse in my life, what is the point of me going out? I think it is going to make a difference. I think you're right that it's not going to necessarily be the thing that sways the majority of people to go one way or the other, but it is going to affect voting behavior in a way that's going to, potentially, cost them the election. I think they can use abortion and kind of the fear of authoritarianism and they can just point at the Republicans and say, look how scary they are. You have to come out, and maybe it'll work. But it's a big gamble, and it's not, I think, necessarily going to be a winner every single time.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm profoundly shocked at the hubris of the GOP to go so far as they're going with, we're going to teach slavery was just a labor relations and learning tool, like work training for Black visitors from across the pond.
Special visas.
Special visas. We let these Black people here on special visas, and they were just hanging out. It wasn't auction blocks per se. It was a draft process, much like the NFL, and you people love sports. It does feel like, even when you're seeing people like Tim Scott and his ilk say, this is a bridge too far. And the only response is, well, they're not real Republicans. Like, that's still not helping the cause, because there's been Black Republicans since since slavery, right? The first wave of Black politicians in the late 1800s during Reconstruction are all Black Republicans. So it's foolish to say something so ignorant, but that might be the big win for a party that doesn't have to do much, but just wait for the other guys to make these kind of cultural slip-ups.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
Things haven't gotten better for many Americans with a Democrat in the White House, but many changes that have negative effects have to do with the Supreme Court and state governments. With states like Texas and Florida, for example, we are seeing more power dwindle from the presidential seat and landing in the hands of governors. Texas and Florida, for example, seem to run like miniature fiefdoms. What would that mean for the general election?
For the general election, I mean, honestly, I don't know how it's going to play in the general election. I think for the long term political life of this country, it's not great. I mean, Greg Abbott. Not that I follow goings on in Texas super closely, but he really seems to have basically used the pandemic to shore up sort of near dictatorial powers. I mean, I think. I mean, to some extent, every single time that there's a president that people don't like, which of course is every single president, because half the country always hates the guy. The states kind of tend to be a little more assertive and they try and kind of make a little mini whatever Republican or Democratic paradise in their state. I mean, I have to say though, you look at someone like Greg Abbott or even DeSantis, and you see how I think radical they're being. And then you look at someone like I'm blanking on his name now, California Governor
Gavin Newsom.
Gavin Newsom, who had I think a Democratic supermajority and ran on basically passing a version of Medicare for all, and in the end didn't, and actually just failed to live up to a whole bunch of promises. And I mean, it's kind of a similar and depressing story where you have the centrist Democrats kind of never acting as radical as the right does. At the same time, I mean, I have to say Minnesota, on the other hand, seems to have really found its feet. I mean, they passed these spate of progressive bills, and I think it was like the most productive session in Minnesota's legislative history. And I mean, there were some things that they didn't pass, but overall, it was a pretty ambitious agenda that they got over the line. Michigan also, there's some exciting stuff happening there. So I mean, I don't want to say that it's completely barren on the blue side, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely concerning. I mean, there's this what's happening in the red states. I mean, there's this fantasy I think that Democrats have when they say, we had all these conservative states, let's just forget about them and not care, and maybe even we can just secede. The problem is though, I mean, there's millions of people that live in these places that are affected by these policies, and it's not, you can't just abandon them. And I mean, yeah, the ugly stuff that's been aimed at LGBTQ people under DeSantis is incredibly concerning and disgusting. I mean, and the same thing with the treatment of migrants and some of the targeting of trans kids under Greg Abbott. It's not. We can't just wash our hands. I don't know if it's going to really play into the general election, but it's not a great sign of sort of where things are trending on the conservative side, that they kind of feel emboldened to launch these kinds of attacks on people.
Tucson, do you want to add something to that?
Why do you think Americans don't get out in the streets and protest for things like this? Why aren't we French? Why aren't we the yellow vests? What is the difference between the countries, and what's stopping us?
Well, I mean, France does have a tradition of, France is, I think, pretty unique as a tradition of militant protest, going back to the French Revolution and before, direct democracy is a long-standing idea there. So the lack of protest in the United States, it's not just the United States. I mean, in some ways, I come from New Zealand. I am very frustrated by some of the political developments there and the lack of action on the ground. I look at the United States and I go, wow, there's so much happening here. And meanwhile, people are miserable back home because of the cost of living crisis that's been going on for over a decade in New Zealand. And, I just don't see near the level of kind of action on the ground there. So, in some ways, it could be worse, which is not a good not a good answer or a good standard to live by. I mean, it's an open question. Why is it that people really should be rioting in the streets everywhere? Not just given the kind of economic conditions we've been living under, but also, given things like the climate crisis that's only worsening, that we saw, this month has kind of been put on our at the front of our minds because of this heat. So I wish that there was more happening. I mean, in some ways, people, when they do protest, it without a coherent kind of set of political institutions to kind of point them in the right direction, which, that's my hope for what the socialist movement, part of what it will eventually do, is kind of direct some of these energies. But without that, people end up kind of expressing their rage in sort of incoherent and not always seemingly logical ways. I really think that that's what we saw, for instance, on January 6th, which, when you think about it, I mean, that was a pretty...
Agreed.
I don't agree with, obviously, what they were protesting about.
Right.
But that was a kind of a radical example of direct democracy. I mean, people literally storming the halls of power and taking over and defacing this place. This place is meant to be this kind of hallowed crucible of democracy. So that, to me, I mean, it's alarming to me that kind of popular rage and frustration is being channeled into basically a kind of authoritarian elite movement, really, which is what the whole Trump Stop the Steal thing was. But that, I think, is a reflection of the fact that people are unhappy. And, if things are not made better, we're going to keep seeing events like that, whether it comes out in the George Floyd protests, whether it comes out on January 6th, whether it comes out in some other form down the line that we'll see.
I don't know if I feel that same way. I think January 6th, and the reason why it gets, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I'd love to get your feelings about this. This is what makes this show fun, right? What's the woman's name? Ashley Babbitt, that tries to break through and she gets shot. People aren't rioting in the streets, really, and using her as a martyr. I mean, I'm sure there's some people in the vast hinge parts of America in some forest practicing shooting state officials that are going to, invade their land in the name of Ashley Babbitt, I'm sure. But, that gets shown a lot in the news media, those trials, in my opinion, to show that we will not tolerate, and by I say we, I mean the state will not tolerate this level of protest. You protest the way we've been telling you to protest, which is peacefully with signs. You make all the effing noise you want, but you do not harm the state. You don't threaten us for real. I don't know if you guys saw this. I don't know if anybody watching this show right now saw this, but in San Francisco, every year there's a thing that the skaters do in San Francisco. They bomb down this hill. If you don't know what that means, San Francisco is filled with these ridiculously steep hills. I learned how to drive on these hills with a stick shift, like every good young Gen Xer does if you grow up in the Bay Area. And they're frightening to drive a car down when you have great brakes. And these kids, it's pretty cool. They patrol the corners and intersections to make sure cars don't go through. And they just bomb down the hill. There's young kids learning how to skate, bombing down the hill. They support that. Parents are out there. It's a very safe event, not a big deal. This year, for whatever reason, the police were called. It was a riot. And the police came, started beating some kids up. It was just a mess, a huge mess. And I think that's a direct effect, more so of January 6th than even the George Floyd stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
stuff, you're tearing up personal property and maybe a Walmart here and there, but you're not storming the Capitol.
There's no doubt that the repressive powers of the state, I mean, at both the state level and at the federal level, has increased, and they're trying to increase it more. as a result of both January 6th and George Floyd. There's been a spate of anti-rioting bills. I mean, the anti-protest laws, they've been passed all over the country. We see the stuff happening in Atlanta against the Cop City protesters, the extreme crackdown on that. So, and the kind of Biden administration's halting, but nevertheless proceeding domestic war and terror, where they explicitly, made clear in their strategy for it. It's not just the far right; it's also anti-capitalist and anarchist and environmentalist protesters that are a threat. So there's no doubt all that is happening, but that is a response also to the clear popular rage that keeps getting expressed in these different events, and which in itself is a response to the fact that nothing is changing and little is getting better in the United States, and
it's all about revenge.
Yeah.
It's a revenge fantasy. It's a death wish, like Charles Bronson revenge fantasy that everybody wants to live out, right? And we can't. We accept certain things as there is no alternative. And I, remember when everybody's getting all excited about, an Oscar for a movie like Parasite and Joker, and there's a change, and look, Squid Games, but all these movies end in the same way. And I kind of agree with Zizek. There is no alternative. And so I don't know if these are I enjoyed the films, but I have to acknowledge the fact that lay people watching them aren't picking up the Communist Manifesto and trying to fight for a better world. They're just accepting the fact that there is no alternative, and everybody wants to be the rich family in the house, not the poor family pretending, if we're talking about something like Parasite, right? And when we talk about these cuts to again, poor people's government aid, it just isn't held in the same regard in the U.S. context that aid is held, or government benefits are held in the same regard in the rest of the world. And we just, when we can't get justice, we settle for catharsis. And you saw it in 2020, and you definitely see it in 2021. You breach the Capitol, you have no plan, and you crap on Nancy Pelosi's desk. You win, right? You busted out some windows, you flipped off a cop, you win. Nothing changes. Were you trying to change the conditions that created George Floyd? Because this sweeping answer that you have is somewhat backfiring, right? These simplistic one-size-fits-all answers to much greater problems. We're not thinking of things on the long term, even. I mean, look at all these, quote, progressive DAs that we get in office that either lose, or in the case of someone like Jacobin, who I believe in my soul is a socialist and was trying to do a good job, gets ousted and replaced by a more centrist district attorney. And the first thing they're doing is like, okay, we're not going to prosecute all these cops. That there was a whole list of cops we're going to prosecute for beating the shit out of people, maybe even killing a few people. Leave them be. Like, let's stop doing that. And you're getting this call from citizens now. Again, vengeance. 3 years earlier, citizens were saying, stop busting these kids for these quality of life crimes or this petty property theft. It's not worth it. It's ruining their lives. Cut to 3 years later, these same people are out in droves saying, no, arrest these people. We want them in some sort of facility away from us. So, the revenge cycle, it just never ends.
Well, I mean, because people don't have those energies channeled into an actual political program. And nor do they have the political education to know what to do with their rage. And so it comes out in these kind of episodes, these violent episodes, or these episodes of mass protests, and then nothing happens because it doesn't coalesce into something bigger. So I think you're right. But I mean, where that's leading, I don't know. I mean, to be a little more optimistic, I mean, also there's people like Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, who has won re-election. I think only once, but nevertheless, I mean, it was a pretty stiff challenge, and he fought it back despite the fact that there was this mountain of kind of fear mongering about crime and about what the supposed defund movement that never actually defunded anything did. But he managed to survive, and he's still progressing in what he's doing. I mean, there was a spate of also progressive prosecutors that were elected in places that you wouldn't even expect necessarily, but in those midterms, despite again some of the fear mongering around crime. And then here in Chicago, Brandon Johnson was able to win by sort of threading a needle, around taking concerns around crime seriously, but not really, sticking to his core message of economic investment. So. It's not as triumphant as we would like, but it's not quite as hopeless as I think it seems. I think there is stuff happening. I mean, also a few weeks ago, a month ago, I was at this conference of 50 or so elected officials, socialists, elected officials around the country. It was the first meeting that they'd ever had. And it was incredible to see people, had been elected all over the country, and not just elected, but had, been able to do things, even though they were sometimes the sole socialist members of their elected bodies, or, basically completely isolated. And, these were modest wins, but some of them were important. I mean, in DC, they were able to, keep, put a pretty decent cap on rent increases. Again, but is it what we want to see in an ideal world? No. But I mean, there is some stuff happening that I think points to the need to continue to struggle and to try and actually give people the political education that they need to actually try and get organized and do things beyond just, setting fire to a police station or taking a shit at Pelosi's desk.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, everybody that's a part of this show, we want to see actual real changes happen, but we understand that this is a long-term process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen because you're going to have a one-size-fits-all answer. Canada had the one-size-fits-all answer to stop overdose deaths. We'll have these shooting galleries and safe injection sites, and that'll fix that problem, and we've solved poverty. And now you're seeing a right-wing pushback because you kind of created a bit of a hell zone in those places, in places like Vancouver. And it is a problem. And the one size fits all answer didn't even try to solve poverty. It was just trying to contain a small problem. And it seems like again, back to the kind of the political imaginations of things, we just want to contain these small problems. I mean, Toussaint, do you want to add something to that?
No, you're doing just fine.
Well, you're the person that bounced these ideas off when we're having these brainstorm sessions off air.
This is true. Well, I do want to say we have a super chat.
Go ahead.
We have a super chat from A Deck, who wants to add Michigan Dems let people be poisoned, water and air.
I thought that was a Republican governor that switched the water source. Am I wrong?
I thought it was Democrats.
Was it a Democratic governor that switched the water source? I don't remember. Oh, yeah, because didn't he end up getting a job with Biden, the administration?
Sounds right.
Do you remember that governor, Branko? That switches the water source in Michigan for Flint?
I just checked. He is a Republican.
Okay.
I mean, look, there's a million things you could say that the Democrats are terrible. But yeah, the Michigan Democrats did repeal right to work. I'm not saying that means that they're. I think sometimes, like when we talk about this stuff, when we say some good stuff happened, people think, oh, this means that we're saying that the Democratic Party and these, career politicians are the greatest people ever and that they're saints. No, not at all. But none of these people are doing this stuff because they're going to their hearts, because they think it's great. It's because of pressure from below. And because they feel like politically they need to. So, I mean, that's what's important to me is when you see the establishment hacks having to do stuff or feeling like they have to do stuff that they would never in a million years do. That to me is a sign of some progress. To give my constantly sunny take on the situation.
Maybe we need some more sunshine over here at TIR Central. There is a clip I wanted to play. There's a couple things that kind of shot out at me as we were getting ready for this show. Again, Toussaint was very excited about getting you on. She goes, Branko is kind of echoing your sentiment about Hell World, Jason.
Your favorite topic, Hell
Your favorite
World.
topic, Hell World. It's like, look, I'm writing something about it. I'm kind of getting it all worked out. But there's a clip. So I'm from, we don't know each other. We have a mutual friend in Ben Burgess. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. I now live in Mexico, but I still try to follow California politics as close as possible. As I worked in homeless services for a while, and I still have friends in that world. But so of course you always deal with crime, right? In the city of Oakland, where I was born and lived for years, there is an uptick in crime. And much like San Francisco, they have a black female DA. We always look at these things through some sort of racialized lens because that is the story that sells, right? So Oakland's black residents came out in droves recently to have a town hall meeting with the DA and the chief of police to complain about why aren't you locking these little nigglets up? Yep.
No, what we have been through.
Frustrated and angry tonight, hundreds of people demanding Oakland city officials do better to address their crime and safety concerns.
It has gotten out of hand. I've been here 23 years. I've never seen anything like this.
We need to do better as a community.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Meebe.
And I'm Julie Hayner. Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price was joined by Oakland Police and the Alameda County Sheriff's Office at tonight's public safety meeting.
A group of very passionate people lined up around the block to get into this meeting. At one point, community members took the meeting over, loudly voicing their concerns about a rise in violence and the lack of prosecution in the county. New at 10, KTVU's Amber Lee joins us live from the city of Oakland after attending tonight's heated meeting. Amber?
Mike, tonight's meeting was held in the Montclair neighborhood. There was an overflowed crowd. The mood was tense at times.
While I'm driving and pull me out of the car at gunpoint, what are we doing to address this? And how do we solve this? Nobody feels safe.
At the public safety meeting inside Montclair Presbyterian Church, tensions ran high at times as audience members questioned Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price and Oakland Police Captain Clay Birch about crime prevention and holding criminals accountable. Police said on Thursday have been made in some carjacking cases, including this attempt caught on video along Skyline Boulevard. That may help to solve other cases.
This is an example of what I hear almost every week. It's almost every other day. We're out there constantly looking. We're using technologies where I'm hoping we're going to find the suspects in your case, just so you show OPD's not asleep.
DA Price was questioned about not charging 9 juveniles that were taken into custody for a number of robberies in recent months. She says the victims are unable to identify their attackers, and it was a seasoned deputy in her office with 20 years of experience who determined whether to bring charges.
The deputy make a reasonable judgment that we could not prove those cases beyond a reasonable doubt. And it's our understanding that the cases are still under investigation.
Price says it's the probation department, not the DA's office, that is in charge of assessing juvenile offenders. We saw people lined up outside the church an hour before the meeting, wanting the chance to ask questions and be heard.
Pamela Price needs to understand that there must be consequences when there are assaults on people in this city.
They just drive around and pick the victim. It's getting scary. I'm fearful.
All right.
There were people wanting to speak.
I've said this numerous times on this show that the crime that we're seeing right now is nothing like what we saw in the late 80s and 90s due to an influx of cheap cocaine being able to be turned into its rock form, sold extremely inexpensively, and then have the built-in distribution networks of gangs who already had kind of assigned territories, which are, a built-in consumer base, and needing to beef up their numbers. The reason why you see people recruiting, if you will, almost violently in that era, because you need more people, because you need more power, because now you're talking about projects and neighborhoods worth, millions of dollars, right? One crack house could be worth millions of dollars. So of course you want to rob it or get that territory. Of course, you're going to have a certain level of obscene violence. We're dealing with this much money and that much markup. Stealing a shit ton of stuff from a CVS is not the same as 1989. But the thing that is the same is the rhetoric and is the imagery. So you guys didn't see the whole thing. That white car that you saw, it was a carjacking in a place called the Oakland Hills, in a place called Skyline Boulevard, which is a beautiful boulevard in the hills of Oakland where multi-million-dollar homes sit. And someone was driving, and there was a car that attempted carjacking. They actually just kept going, and the person didn't stop them. So it's a certain level of fear-mongering, number one, which I do believe is a direct pushback of what we saw in 2020. But how the way the media portrays 2020, where every time we saw a white officer do anything with a black person was cause to get out and protest. Now we're seeing every robbery, things that probably wouldn't even have made the news, as a cause for people to get out and protest for more police. So much so that I was sent this. I have to read this to you, Branko, by our mutual friend Ben Burgess, because he knows how I feel about this subject. He says, "Oh my God, have you seen this?" And I did not read this to you in Tucson. This is from the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Oakland branch. It's the NAACP. Oakland residents are sick and tired of our intolerable public safety crisis that overwhelmingly impacts minority communities. Murders, shootings, violent armed robberies, home invasions, car break-ins, sideshows, and highway shootouts have become a pervasive fixture in life in Oakland. We call on all elected leaders to unite and declare a state of emergency and bring together massive resources to address our public safety crisis. African Americans are disproportionately hit hardest by crime in East Oakland and other parts of the city, but residents from all parts of the city report that they do not feel safe. Women are targeted by young mobs and viciously beaten and robbed in downtown and uptown neighborhoods. Asians are assaulted in Chinatown. Street vendors are robbed in Fruitvale, that's a district of Oakland. News crews have their cameras stolen while they report on crime. That recently happened when CNN did a special report on crime in San Francisco at a CVS. But the crime they reported was just petty shoplifting. But I don't know if you guys remember when ESPN came to Oakland for the Warriors' first title in like 2014, whatever that was. They stole a bunch of cameras. That did happen. Failed leadership, including the movement to defund police, our district attorney's unwillingness to charge and prosecute people who murder and commit life-threatening serious crimes, and the proliferation of anti-police rhetoric have created a heyday for Oakland criminals. If there are no consequences for committing crime in Oakland, crime will continue to soar. People are moving out of Oakland in droves. They are afraid to venture out of their homes to go to work, shop, or dine in Oakland, and this is destroying economic activity. Businesses, small and large, struggle and close. Tax revenues vanish. And we are creating the notorious doom loop where life in the city continues to spiral downward as economic pain increases. The conditions that help create crime and criminals are exacerbated by desperate people with no employment opportunities. We are in crisis, and elected leaders must declare a state of emergency and bring resources together from the city, the community, and the state to end the crisis. Here's the best part. I hope you guys are all sitting down. Please, for those watching the show, don't be standing up. Don't be pacing around your living room. Sit down. This is my favorite part. Tucson, are you sitting down?
Sitting down.
Did you flip the hair real quick to make sure? Branko, you got some fabulous hair. Get ready. Flip your hair. Get ready for this one.
There we go.
Our 911 system does not work. Oh, sorry. We are in crisis, and elected leaders must declare a state of emergency and bring resources together from the city, the county, and the state to end this crisis. We are 500 police officers short of the number that experts say Oakland needs. Our 911 system does not work. Residents now know that help will not come when danger confronts them. Worse, criminals know that too. A story was just done in the Bay Area that people are waiting up to 20 minutes on 911 phone calls. The people that asked to defund the police in 2020 when the protests were going on, half of that group of people that fought very hard to get things like law enforcement out of Oakland schools still said, please don't fire any law enforcement officials because we are deathly afraid for our children. Here we are, 2023. 3 years after multiple cities burned over police violence. And now we're getting a bourgeois push to not just fund the police, but bring out more cops. This smells like 1994. It's like Beyond Meat for me. Is that burger you're making? Is that crime bill you're brewing up? Are you going to build some more prisons? No, I don't think so. I think it's going to be done at the state level. I don't think we're going to see a federal sweeping bill. But what say you, Brother Branko?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty depressing. There's not much to say. I mean, beyond that, there's actually, I don't have the figures in front of me, but a lot of the stimulus money that was meant to, go into helping state and local governments, I don't know, fix up their infrastructure, maybe fund public transport, do all manner of things, ended up going to police funding. And I mean, it went to police funding, and people are still complaining. People are still complaining about crime 2 years later, which I think shows you that the limited impact that I think just throwing more money and more police at the problem actually has. I mean, they got rid of Burdine in San Francisco. I mean, people are still complaining about crime. Isn't the tough on crime person now prosecuting people? I don't really understand this idea.
She's not prosecuting certain people. Like
Right.
there was a bunch of break-ins, and a baby got shot when some kids pulled out a gun to rob someone, and it bounced off the concrete and hit a baby. These things happen. And it's not like it's happening every day, but they happen, and that's fucked up, right? We don't want kids to get shot. Nobody wants that. But again, I always want people to be reminded of what the 90s looked like as, again, someone that grew up in that time. This ain't it. Yeah. I was in San Francisco 2 months ago. Went to go see my old guitar player play a show about a mile down from where I was staying, walked and hung out with him, walked back to my hotel at 2 a.m. A-okay. Nobody stopped me to rob me. I'm only 5'10". Tucson, shut up.
He's not quite funny.
I wasn't fearing for my life. But if you read these stories, if you see these constant images of smash and grab robberies, which almost seem trendy in a way, you may think that San Francisco is some sort of hellscape. A lot of people don't understand that these things are a little more complex than just businesses leaving because of break-ins. There was also during 2020 kind of the perfect storm of leases were coming due. So there are people that believe that we're seeing a capital strike in places like San Francisco, because you did have, quote, progressive people, not just in the likes of Chesa Boudin, but also in city council positions, which are really powerful in places like San Francisco. Not as powerful as LA, but still pretty powerful. So, a lot of this has to do with, capital wanting to make their terms again and not have it be dictated by the people or politicians. And that's something that doesn't get talked about in these stories because it's not a very sexy thing to talk about. And that definitely gets into the weeds of how these things work. And it really plays against the narratives that engage us politically, which is good guy, bad guy narratives. Trump bad, fight against him with whatever you got, even if it's Joe Biden bad. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, to what you were saying about obviously crime is real, and there is an uptick, but it's nothing like what it used to be, and that's I think pretty much across not just the United States, but other Western countries too. But I mean, you're right. The constant media attention to it, I think, takes what might be a real phenomenon. People experience crime in their own life, and they see something happening, and they go, "I haven't seen that before. I haven't seen that in a while." And then they start hearing about it constantly, and they go, "Well, this must be happening all the time. This must be really bad." I mean, I remember I don't really watch TV that much anymore, but I was in New York, and I watched the morning news there, and it was literally just there was a stabbing over here. Somebody was killed over here. Somebody was shot here. I mean, it was just a litany of that. And I thought to myself, number one, how is this helpful in any way? I mean, this isn't really informative. You watch the news to be informed about what's happening in the world. All you're hearing is just a bunch of murders and assaults. But number two, I mean, not to sound callous, but I mean, New York is what, 10 million people. I mean, yeah, unfortunately, human beings being what they are and society being what it is, you're going to get acts of violence happening. If you want to find them, you can, and you can have a litany of 3 or 4 every single morning that you can run. But the fact that people's entire days start with just this list of terrible crimes, I think primes people to kind of take what is a real problem. Any crime is too much crime, and obviously the even the modest uptick that's happened over the pandemic is terrible. But to take a real problem and just completely blow it way out of proportion and be really terrorized by it.
Tucson, you want to read that super chat?
Sure. This is from DV Epps. Municipal security forces and detention centers are capable of providing public safety. I work in a school. The admin doesn't need a personal cop.
Well, what school do you work in, David? Do you work in one of those lean on me schools with Joe Clark? You smoke crack, don't you?
Well, let me ask a question about that. These not about the schools.
You're not about Branko knowing about crack smoking students.
But just the idea of this personal cop thing. You have all of these like Walgreens and CVS's getting robbed. Someone mentioned the idea that they want to get rid of their own security and replace that with cops so they don't have to pay for their own security. And that's what some of these stories are about. What do we think about that?
I mean, on the one hand, you could make the case that a more professionalized security might be better. I mean, when you look at some of the ways that these shoplifting incidents have gone out of control, and then someone ends up getting killed. But then, I mean, the police don't have exactly a great track record of not shooting people for frivolous things. So I mean, it seems like you're damned if you do, damned if you
Right.
Well, the private way, again, we'll bring up Banko Brown, which not a lot of people wanted to talk about, because I think it was a hard discussion to have, because you couldn't have the racial discussion around the Banko Brown situation. If you don't know what that is, Branko, that's the young trans man that was killed in the Walgreens or CVS, I can't remember, in San Francisco. He was shoplifting, and there was a mandate that came down from the security company that was, you have to physically stop people that are shoplifting. And so the guard physically stops the young man. They get into a scuffle. The young man says he's going to kill the guard and stab him. And the guard tells him to leave. He yells something at him, and the guard shoots him and then kills him with one sadly fatal shot. And that's private security on the cheap, right? It comes out the guard kind of had a traumatic past as well. Probably not the person that you want to have a firearm and be charged with de-escalating situations like this, because you're going to deal with situations like this 100 times a day in a place like downtown San Francisco, especially if there's a mandate that's come down that says you have to physically stop people from, stealing when everything is locked up. It's like going to a freaking museum when you walk into a CVS in a major metropolitan area. Everything is, I don't know what it looks like for you in New York, Tucson, or you in Chicago, Branko, but I'm sure it's the same for you. Tucson can't get her hair care products because it's all locked up.
I have to call a person to get some hairspray.
You got to call a person to get pink oil moisturizer.
That's right.
That's not what Don Cornelius wanted for us.
It's not. In
the Soul Train world of Black advertising, we were sold a very different vision of what CVS was supposed to look like.
Well, the only thing I would add to that is just that, as always, we end up talking about kind of reactive policies. So, who should be the person responding to shoplifting or petty crime, or what exact structure, what should it look like that deals with crime, with people shoplifting, when the reality is, why are people committing crime, why are people shoplifting in the first place? I mean, it's the conversation should be at the root causes, and there's an attempt to do that, but I still think unfortunately so much of the time we end up just talking about who should be the person holding the gun.
Wow, that was good. I like that. Who should be the person holding the gun? Toussaint, who should be the person holding the gun?
The person holding the gun, whoever it is, should say, CVS and Walgreens are a little too expensive these days. No one wants to talk about that. It's a real problem. They don't want to get robbed. We don't want to rob them. But here we are.
Steve says he has a can of Murray's that will last him for the next 40 years, so he doesn't need to steal anything. I don't know if Branko knows about Murray's. Do you know about Murray's? You need to get Branko some to the south side. Give him a Murray's tutorial. He'll have a do-rag on, smoking menthols in no time.
Could be a good look. I don't know. I need to change this up, so this is in the right direction.
Did Ben tell you that I took him to a black barbershop recently?
No.
Yes.
And
he was drinking brown liquor in the black barbershop.
Nice. Ben doesn't give me such intimate details about his day-to-day activities, but if there's any footage of this, I'd love to.
Well, look, Branko, it's getting late. We know you have a busy day ahead of you. More depressing articles to write for us to wax poetic about our depression on. Thank you so much for joining us. And, of course, what else are you working on, and what should we be looking out for, and where can people find you?
I'm always working on a million things. I write a lot about, U.S. foreign policy and the war in Ukraine in particular, which I think is a really important subject and very, talk about depressing and concerning. I mean, that is, a very anxiety-inducing event for many, many, many reasons. But, I think if you go to Jacobin, you can see all my writing about that and domestic U.S. politics and, so much else. You can find me in these times. You can find me on Twitter at Marcetic, my last name with H's after every C. Yeah, I think I've covered everything.
What about one of 200?
And one of two, of course. This is a New Zealand-based podcast that I host. I've been a little bit absent from it for the last little while because I've just had a bunch of things that have taken up my time. But if you want to find out what's going on in New Zealand and perhaps feel either better or maybe more depressed about what's happening in the United States, check out one or two.
Well, recently we had Neha Wakandar. I'm going to say her name so wrong. Hope she doesn't punch me. And she wrote a very interesting investigative piece about legalizing sex work in Thailand. And I did a bunch of deep dive research into your native New Zealand and Australia, who has totally legalized sex work, and kind of talked about those models and the successes, I guess, or failures of both of them, the Nordic and the New Zealand model. That I don't think gets enough discussion, maybe because there's not enough research. There's more than I thought on it, but
yeah, I mean, it's not my area of expertise by any means, but I think sometimes I can be a little bit harsh to things going on back home. There are actually a lot of progressive things that one can point to that could be a model for the US and other countries. At the same time, we have things like we legalized euthanasia by popular referendum, but we refused to legalize marijuana. Strange, very inexplicable. But I don't know what this says about the New Zealand public and where we are. But there we go. I have faith that things will, on that front will change in the next decade. But yeah, a real missed opportunity there.
And my new go to sleep show is What We Do in the Shadows. That's the greatest thing you guys have ever exported. So
thank you.
Shout out to Tico.
Not Lord. Surely, I know. Are you a fan of Lord?
Oh,
we got Lord.
Yeah, Lord. I've heard nothing but good things about Lord. One of the bus drivers, I worked on a kids TV show for a while, tour, and one of those bus drivers drove Lord. Used to tell us about how wonderful she was to work for.
No, there you go. I'm very glad to hear that. And I have to give a shout out to the Beths, a great New Zealand band that just made it onto Obama's coveted summer playlist. So don't let that don't use that against them. They are a really great band, despite the fact that they ended up there. I mean, listen, whoever compiles these lists for Obama, they know what they're doing. They have good taste. So obviously he's not doing anything, but these people are onto it.
Well, Branko, thank you very much. Wherever you are listening or watching this show, there are links in the description to Branko's piece in Jacobin. Thank you very much, Branko. You have a great rest of your day.
Cheers. You too, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's fun discussion. So Toussaint, let's do it. You got to play the clip. Let's go out with before we leave today. This is the Saturday free show here at TIR. Listening and watching, you guys know that we tend to go a little bit longer on this show. We've been about an hour and a half so far. This is all free champagne, as we say. And part of the champagne room is Toussaint and Jason breaking down videos ever since the great dance off 2023 junior high dance off. Still one of my favorite videos next to the McDonald's Hatchet Man. There's a new one we have, and this is a viral video that the great DJ Vlad sent me.
The great
investigative journalist DJ Vlad. He always gets you the news that you want.
Is that what he does?
I don't know, but
yeah,
I think I told you, like, a friend of mine knew DJ Vlad when he was still trying to make mixtapes.
Mm-hmm.
This friend now writes a TV show, but we used to go to these parties, and Vlad was a DJ. I think there were radio station parties, like back in the day. My friend had a hot single at the time, and I'd signed up for a mailing list, and I've been getting these DJ Vlad emails for years, and it's the only way I know what young people, I guess, listen to, because I have no idea who these people are. I've never heard their music, but I know their names and their drama. I know what an NBA young boy looks like.
Hey.
But this person has went viral because this gentleman was stood up. He said he went out on a date, and his date didn't show up, and he got stood up. You haven't watched this, right?
No.
Okay. I'm mad you made me big. That's what he said.
That's what he said.
Can you press play on this wonderful video?
So I just left the restaurant after waiting 30 minutes for a date to show up, and apparently I got stood up. I don't know what to say. I do everything right to be a gentleman. I brought flowers. I've been consistent talking with this girl for 2 weeks, trying to get to know what she likes, what she doesn't like. I made plans. I picked a restaurant, the day and the time. You know, I've done everything to be just the kind of guy that would value somebody's time. Like, I'm just looking for my person. I'm just looking for the one that, I guess, is out there for me. I mean, I want to be somebody's husband someday, father. I'm trying to do everything that's right, and I just get stood up. Like, my feelings didn't even matter. Sitting there eating a meal by myself and realizing that nobody even cares about people anymore. Like, alien dating shouldn't even be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard to find somebody. It shouldn't be this difficult to fall in love, to be kind to one another. Like, what, ladies, tell me, what did I do wrong?
Either they don't know, don't show, or don't care about the fact that chubby niggas get stood up at restaurants. Unmute yourself, Toussaint.
There you
Unless
go.
you were laughing.
There you go. I was saying, damn. Damn. Jason is foul. Jason is mean.
A friend of mine says that they think it's fake. And Branko, we were talking about this off air with Branko, and I didn't want to, he had important Branko shit to do today.
Important Branko shit.
He doesn't want to deal with colored shenanigans right now. But I do. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting point. And look, I've been stood up before. And the last thing I thought to do was to go on social media and ask women I don't know to tell me why I suck. My internal self-hate tells me why I suck enough. I don't need the internet chiming in. Well, you could start with.
Exactly.
And, bigger than that, you're supposed to do these things because you like to do them, right? Like, you don't want to. It feels a little performative in a way. Like, I talked to this person for 2 weeks and I got consistently for 2 weeks. It's like, okay, but maybe they fucking blew up in a plane or got an emergency hysterectomy or fucking got their arm caught in a microwave. There's so many things that could have happened to them.
It makes me think of that Dave Chappelle bit where he's like, I don't know, so was it somebody's phone rang during a show or something?
Mhm.
I don't know, something happened and he's like, you want to know what sort of went down, and turns out, what if this person's mom died, and
Yeah.
they just get a call and it's like, Mama, no. So like, you always want to wait for your reaction until you find out what happened, because literally anything could happen. I had a
Anything can
friend that was late for class one day, and the teacher yelled at her, and she was like, I'm sorry, I just got hit by a car. And she's like in a daze walking in the classroom. You know? I just knew I had to come to school. That's all I knew.
And then they started talking like Mitch McConnell in that fucking interview. I just got. I saw that Mitch McConnell thing, and I was like, "Oh, he shat himself. He shat himself, dude. Come on." If you don't believe Mitch McConnell shat himself, and you want to believe that he had a stroke, you've never seen a person shit. You're not a parent. I know that face.
Mid-sentence.
Father of 4. I've seen that face multiple times. You know, when
Father
you look over, you look you're like, "Hey, why are you?" And the kid just standing still, just. He shat himself, and it was a Code Brown. It's Code Brown.
Code Brown.
But because of the racism of Mitch McConnell, it took him a while to understand Code Brown. Like, we have a Code Brown.
But is there
there's no coloreds here. No, a Code Brown. No, we got all the niggers out. We knew McConnell was speaking. Not that Brown. The downtown Brown. He blew out his shorts. Oh shit! Get him off the stage quickly. That is my Mitch McConnell take. There you go. That he just simply had a Code Brown.
That's embarrassing.
It is. It makes you stop talking because you realize that the fart you tried to sneak out, you know, and I think that's what happened. Remember I told you I was on the date and farted in front of my date?
And you actually had a Code Brown in real life. You just didn't want to tell me.
I didn't have a Code Brown, but if I was 105 years old like Mitch McConnell,
you would.
I would have trusted that fart. Code Brown.
Code Brown.
Code Brown. And I'm, that was one of the comments when I did that. They said, Jason, never trust a fart. And they were right. I thought it was going to be a quiet, and it was a talker. It was like a loud suburban Long Island housewife.
Oh my God.
It was like, and one that didn't get their Starbucks order right. So that's how loud.
Oh my gosh.
I trusted.
I was hanging out with some UPS guys a while ago. I was at work hanging out with some UPS guys, and they were talking about one of their coworkers who had a Code Brown at work. They were like, he ran to the bathroom, and I tell you, it was so bad, it was on his socks. It's like, what? No. And he was like, he told everybody, this guy can't keep his mouth shut. On his, what are you doing that it's on your socks?
Code Brown.
Code Brown.
Eating the wrong food.
Oh.
You got to know. You got to know when to just fold them. Not about holding them, because, again, the older you get, the less you can hold. You don't know what you're holding. And then you Mitch McConnell all over the place.
all over the place.
What can Brown do for me?
That's one type of code brown.
Oh, shit. You know, just so you guys know, this is the kind of content you get in the champagne room.
Yes,
Personal stories about my dating failures.
Work stories for me about code brown.
About code brown. We have a code brown. We were sure there's no Mexicans in here. No.
You have a code brown. We need a fresh pair of socks. Quickly to the bathroom. Quickly, there's no time.
Send her down. Code brown, send her down. Oh, God. McConnell sharted again. This one must be bad. He stopped speaking. This isn't one of his filibuster sharts.
No, this is a totally different kind.
And you know how I know he sharted? The way he walked off.
Oh.
That walk that the kid leaves. Again, you know what your trial by fire parenting is when you can't find your child in a mall?
Mm-hmm.
And you find them when you...
Oh, no.
that circular rack of clothes. And you... Oh, there you go. You're just sitting there McConnelling in the fucking circular rack.
Somebody did a McConnell.
Somebody McConnelled.
So nasty.
I want that to trend.
Code brown.
Code brown and McConnelling. Oh, dude, I was on a date, dude. I almost McConnelled. But back to being on dates and getting stood up.
Yes.
I got stood up. When I first came to Mexico, I met this woman and we went out and we were hanging out. I was like, oh, we can just go back to my place. I live alone. She goes, no, not tonight. Another night. I'll go back to your place. Totally down. And I was like, Sunday. Met her on a Friday. Like, Sunday. She goes, bet. Sunday. We'll go out. And Sunday comes. She tells me, okay, I'm going to meet you at this place. It's kind of near where you live. We'll meet there. We'll have dinner. And then go to your house. And I get to the place and I have my best, I'm 40 something and don't know how to dress anymore outfit on. You know what I mean?
I know the shirt.
You know the shirt. I only have 5. Right? It's unbuttoned to the navel. I think I had a beard at the time. It's like lined as best as I can do it. I got like a ruler to make sure.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Took a shower right beforehand. Made sure not to eat anything that may cause me to McConnell.
Important.
And I'm ready. And I walk in. And she's not there, right? She's not there. But I say, table for 2. And they go, oh, your party's coming? Yeah. I'm on a date.
I'm on a hot date.
20 minutes pass. You want to take that second menu away? No. She's coming. Do not touch that menu. And I'm trying to sit at the bar so she can see me when she walks in at this place. And you just feel, and keep in mind, I'm like the black guy in this whole fucking region of the country.
Yep.
Just standing out, looking like I got stood up, and it is the worst feeling. because I'm not going to give up on the fact that she's coming.
Right.
Right? Does that ever happen to you?
No.
I'm like, nope, she's good. And the people are just like, you sure you don't want to order? There's only so much Coca-Colas one can drink. Oof. Someone says the Jimmy fedora. Oh, dude, I totally had the fedora on. I was like, and you try to like look at your phone like you're being important.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, oh no, while I'm waiting, I have important stuff to do on my phone. I'm not just reading my spam email folder.
You might have had a better time in there.
So I know what it's like. The woman did end up showing up an hour and a half later. I'll just leave it at that because this is still part of the free show. But yeah. But man, oof. I got stood up another time. Didn't I call you the day I got stood up the other day?
I thought that was the time.
No, this was a different. I get stood up a lot.
Oh, it's because you're in the casino apps, messing with these people. They're all just gambling too.
I'm trying to find dates like the game show Press Your Luck. No whammy, no whammy, no whammy. Stop. Oh, stood up by a woman that tried to fucking.
Yep. Whammy.
Womp womp. Steve said Jason's sitting at the bar with his chest out with baby oil on. Like it's sad.
Baby oil. Looking like you just hopped out of R&B video.
Oh man, I felt like Jodeci and BBD all in one mighty Negro. I felt like Johnny Gill, Keith Sweat, Ron O'Neal. I felt like every superstar black person sans R. Kelly.
Sans R. Kelly. Everybody hit like.
Everybody hit like for people that get. You know what I want to hear in the chat or in the comments? Leave a story of you getting stood up. That shit sucks. I will say this. After an hour and a half, it was an hour and a half. Tucson, I sat there and waited the whole time. She ends up calling after like an hour. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm on my way. I'm like, where are you fucking coming from? LA? So, something happened.
Mama, no.
This woman did. You know how they have those like matchmaker people? Like, remember that guy Mystery? Like, what you need to do if you want to get a chick is wear this stupid hat and be rude. Like all those people.
Mm-hmm.
She totally used all those tricks on me, and all of them worked.
Whoa.
Just like, you got to reverse it.
Oh my gosh. All of them work.
Oh my God. Like, I should have just left. I should have been like that guy after the first half hour after I sat there and ate. They took my plate. You sure you don't want to leave? And so I wait, and she is like, wait, can you get me this? And she tells me something to order, which is also kind of fucked up because I ordered something for you. So I'm kind of trapped here now. I can't leave. Like I could leave.
Yeah.
But I ordered something. I have this weird hope. And I'm kind of mad.
It should be.
Because I look like an asshole. Like, you know how bad you feel when you got the shirt unbuttoned all the way down to where it's like, shit, is this too low?
Steve. Steve wants you to have some damn self-respect.
Thrown out the window, right? She walks in the door, and I'm not trying to be funny because people at this place actually know, like, me and Ben. They even know, like, Jordan and Kuba, you know, Kuba's wife. She walks in the door, and everybody stops, looks at the woman. Staff looks at me. I look at the woman. Part of me is like, holy shit. Okay. And I walk over to do that hey, how are you? Hug.
Mm-hmm.
And she grabs me and she makes out with me in the middle of the bar.
Okay.
Did not see that coming.
Yeah. No.
At that moment, she won.
Sounds like it.
She won. All the anger I had, all the questions I was going to ask, where are you? Where were
How's
you?
your mom?
How's your... Yeah.
Mama, no!
Mama, no! Why? Why?
Why?
She could have told me Jeff Galooly, Nancy Kerrigan, her shins, and I would have believed anything she said at that point.
Oh my God.
Anything she said at that point. She won. It took me a while to realize, I think this woman's married. I think that's why I get these weird time phone calls. And she's always late to things.
Jesus.
Right? So those tricks work on me.
On you.
Yes. Totally worked on me. Like I've been late to something, like legitimately late for like a real reason, and someone left and got angry. I was like, man, how did that lady do that to me?
You gotta make out in the middle of the bar.
How do you stay that long?
That's true.
I waited 90 minutes. An hour just for a response.
Playing Pokemon.
Oh, the text messages was going unanswered. I'm over here calling distant relatives I ain't talked to in years. Trying to act like somebody loved me.
To say.
Cousin Adam, how you doing? How them kids? No, I'm just waiting. Don't worry about what I'm doing. I'm asking about you, nigga. How you doing? I know it's an odd time to call in the middle of the evening.
Odd time to call.
And that's never happened to you, huh? Just me? Just me and the fucking viral video guy?
That has never happened to Steve. Steve would never.
So it's just me and the viral video guy that like get stood up for long periods of time, and then people tell us some bullshit excuse.
Well, at least you didn't buy flowers and then make a video and.
No, I did buy pizza.
Well, pizza's good for everybody, though. Flowers are kind of like, who am I gonna give this to now?
Yeah,
some old lady.
I didn't get flowers. I got her a drink, and that motherfucker was just sitting there.
Midi Doctor says, "Take a hint, Jason."
I can't get into the full story. It is a hilarious story. I wish I could tell you guys everything that happens after that, because it's kind of hilarious. But up until that point is pretty embarrassing. And I there's a little bit of me that has a little bit of like, oh, I know what it's like to fucking sit there and you're like, why even bother making plans if you're not going to show up?
Women suck.
Women say, why do women do this all the time? They tell me that they're going to come show to the thing, and I bought the thing, When is anyone gonna love me for me? Did 100 push-ups before I left the house.
That voice is outrageous.
I'm working out to the Rocky montage videos. Like, just gotta get a good pump so she can see the right. An hour and a half I waited. And I said nothing. I said nothing for like 2 weeks. She would just do the most outlandish shit to me for 2 weeks, and I didn't give a damn.
Shit.
Paul says I do that voice too. You know why? Because everyone inside has that voice. I don't care who you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care your fucking ethnic background. Inside of you is that voice. I don't know why.
I don't know why.
Why don't women like me? I go and I've fucking been working out. And
this always happens
this
every
always
time.
happens to me. Every time I find a girl that I like.
I'm gonna try anymore.
And it's not even hot. Like, maybe I'm not hot enough. How do I get hotter? I just want to be hot enough for her to like me. Women.
Can't live with them. The end.
Can somebody just, I don't know, give me a, pity hand job?
No. Jan Clements wants to know what happened after the kiss. Jason
You want to know what
blacked
really
out.
happened? You want me to know like what really happened, or
Blacked out.
You want to know what really happened?
Yeah.
Tell me to stop when it goes too far.
I will.
We sit down at the table, and everything here is messed up because the anger was like this bitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
The voice went from "Oh, to this bitch gonna know. She gonna learn. I'm gonna tell her everything. I'm like, and you think you ain't that cute to be leaving me at the bar? Like, bitch, I'm smooth. I shave my chest for this shit. You think I'm gonna wait for you all day? I don't know who the fuck you think you is.
Mm-hmm.
You may be a 10 in Mexico, but you're like a 5 in the States, bitch.
Mm.
All this shit was in my mind.
Yeah.
Right. She walks in the door, and it's like, ooh. God damn. And when the hug turns to a very intense like make-out kiss, we go sit down at the bar, and she looks at me and she goes, "Are you ready to go?" I was like,
"But you just got here."
Yeah. I was like, yeah. And she's like, "Let's go." I was like, "Don't you want to eat?" She goes, "No."
"Don't you want a doggy bag?" "No."
She was like, "Let's go." "How far do you live from here?" It's like, it's just like it's quick. Just how do you want to get in my car? And how do you want to?
You should have said, "I don't like women who waste food."
There's a lot of things I should have said and done.
This is true.
But at that moment, I was like, I think this is a gift horse here, and I don't want to look it in the mouth.
Okay.
Jan Clemens said, "Is that when you farted?" That was a whole different person, Jan.
That was a whole
I held in
different person.
every fart that night, Jan. Jan, the woman did come over. Did I go outside to the terrace to fart? Maybe.
Twice.
Maybe.
Oh, come look at the view.
Or don't. Just you look comfortable there. Just stay there. These frogs sure are big out here in Baja.
Jeez.
I mean, there's definitely more to that story. That woman said some insane shit to me kind of the whole night. I don't think I'm allowed to say exactly what happened.
It's a pretty cool trick. I gotta take notes.
Oh, dude. she would just like not return calls for days.
Somebody said maybe she had a code brown. Code brown, code brown.
Code brown, code brown, code brown. The senator has a code brown. Steve says stomach be hurting from holding in farts all night. It does, Steve. It does. That's how you know it's love. That's how you know it's love. Someone says, Jason, you're tricking. Look, I'm not. I'm telling you guys the God's the honest truth. She used all the tricks and it worked. I can't get into the specifics of what she did to make these things work.
But it worked.
But yeah. Oh yeah. I was just, you're supposed to be like, no, this is effed up, dude. You can't just call me at, I've been trying to reach you and go out and do like normal things, and all of a sudden you call me at midnight seeing what I'm doing right now. You can't just do that to me. I'm a human. I have feelings. Who do you think you... Oh, that's who you are. Okay, well.
Okay, well, hey.
Sorry I was being so mouthy earlier. Jan Clemens says, damn those booty calls. Yeah, who were you at the receiving end of a booty call? All right. It had me like that man. I answer the phone whenever she calls.
She doesn't call me back.
She doesn't call me back and leave her little text messages with smiley face emojis. You ever find yourself doing that? Like you like when you think you're slick, I'm a heart that text.
Gosh. Unfortunately, I deal with Android users.
Oh God.
No. You let the thing play out.
Fuck.
Yeah. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
A lot less communication that you can have. Yeah, I try to be careful with the hearts. Some guys get like really spooked.
Spooked by a heart?
By hearts and emojis and stuff like that.
I'm quite the opposite. If you send me a heart on a text, I'm trying to fit you for a ring.
See? Wow.
And this is why I fucking get stood up at pizza joints.
Damn, Jason. Damn.
I see the heart on the text message. I'm like, oh, maybe this is the one. Maybe I want to find someone to love me.
We're being called elitists.
Why? Because we send hearts on the text messages?
Because we have iPhones.
Wow. Well, if that's elitist, so be it.
Elitist, socialist.
Call me what you like. Just don't be late to the pizza place. Because now I'll leave. Before? It's not going to work out well for me. Like, I would love to say what happened. Why I was like, I can't ever see you again because you violated the most sacred of things. Can I type you what she did in the private chat?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to type. Toussaint, be entertaining while I type this.
Be entertaining.
Yeah, it's kind of foul. So are you sitting down?
I'm sitting. Midi doctor says
this really happened.
Midi doctor says he's dead inside. I find that interesting. That's one way to avoid a lot of this. Okay. Okay.
Wait, you know what's coming?
Did she know what was coming? Oh my gosh. No, the question is, did you know what was coming?
Nope.
Wow.
I was like this. I was like, we have a code brown. Code brown.
Code brown. Code brown at Jesus' house. Oh my gosh.
Is that insane to you? True stuff. Dude, I'm not lying at all. I'm literally looking at this. Dude, is that insane to you?
That's kind of insane.
Then can I add this? I'm gonna add this. This is what really made me go, okay, this has to end.
More.
Then hold on, be entertaining while I write this.
Then be entertaining. The imagination runs wild, Sean Moon says. Indeed it does. Is that? I'm reading it. Okay.
Well, I spelled said wrong because of the I and the A, but yeah. Yeah.
Well. Well. You picked her. You said you shall be the one, at least for the night.
That happened like a few more times later, but yeah. It was like a steady climb, and then that thing happened, and I was like, whoa, you've taken it too far. Code brown. Safe word is banana.
Banana. Of all the safe words. Very controversial among socialists right now.
Banana! Oh, plantain!
My God. This is champagne room stuff.
This is what the champagne room is like. But seriously, am I wrong for being like, this is a bridge too far?
You have the right to erect your boundaries anywhere you would like to. You reserve the right. It's like when Cuba uses the word cleavage in foreign policy talk.
Erect your boundary.
It's the name of your next album.
She had me like Mitch McConnell at the end of the night. I hope you have a very good.
Mitch McConnell.
Someone says Jason was pegged with a banana. Not quite.
Not quite.
Not quite. But definitely I was introduced to a world that I was not ready for.
Mongo bases. Erect your boundaries. Erect your boundaries. Erect your boundaries.
I think I yelled that out as I fucking curled into a ball.
Sean Moon is going to pass out from the vapors.
That was the only time in my life I took a shower right afterwards and cried.
Took a shower afterwards and cried. Oh my Lord.
That and the time I had a prostate inspection.
Jesus.
Somebody said she gave him the old 32 scoot. I can't say on air. I'm not going to say. It's too revealing into the life of an idiot, and I can't say on air. My mother watches this show.
Oh my gosh.
I talked to my father before I went on air, who would probably laugh at me. I'm very sure my father would laugh at me and be like, "You're an idiot," and just giggle.
The old 32 skidoo. The old Ramalama Ding Dong.
But what you guys think happened didn't happen. Something much worse happened. I think. Toussaint, do you think it's much worse?
Yeah, it's worse. It's worse and it escalated. It escalated.
Right? Because that's one of those, like, I didn't ask for that. I didn't say, yeah, this is a good idea.
This is a fantastic idea.
I didn't say, that sounds like fun.
You said yes at the bar. That's when you said yes to the whole night.
Yeah, the whole thing. Like, I should have known. Once you start dealing with someone that's playing these, next level manosphere mind games with you, you're going to get on. And you have to live with that for the rest of your life.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. The bananacades. Erect the barricades. Erect the bananacades. Batten down the hatches.
Someone said Jason had a date with just Pearly.
That's right. She gave him all the statistics.
It's again, it's what has you looking into your phone on Instagram going, I don't know why. Nobody likes me.
I don't know why.
I buy flowers and I bought pizza and I waited 90 minutes. And on that note.
Of all notes. Of all notes to end on. Ending on the brown note.
For people listening on the audio only, you really have to watch this show with the chat, because the chat is just making the most hilarious comments because they don't know what happened, and their comments are to me funnier than if they would have known what happened. I'd be losing patrons left and right, like, oh, we can't be part of this show. Fuck that. No, dude, that's too far. Like, no, dude, you can't.
Somebody said the brown cord.
I thought it was a bridge too far. I was like, just fucking stare back at me like,
take that for your entire gender.
Why are you doing this to me? Because I love you. Shh, the bad man's gone. The bad man's gone.
Gosh.
Shh. I did this because I love you.
Daisy Bluetooth says y'all are adorable. She's encouraging us, and that's not good.
No, Daisy. No, Daisy. I have so many more of these horrible stories. Like, I wish I could tell you the whole story of that lady that night.
Whew.
Bad Lefty is 100% right. Jason streams because therapy is so damn expensive. Thank you, Bad Lefty. It's comment of the day. Jason now has pink eye from his teeth.
Steve says this is why Pascal didn't show up today. Pascal went to sleep and drink orange juice.
Pascal was like, oh, I'm not on today. Oh, happy day.
Oh, happy day when Jesus walked.
You guys act like he over there mad kicking rocks. Who knew? I declare. Like Mitch McConnell's warning, man. I declare we have a cold brown. I declare.
God.
I will say this. Can I say this? Or
Can
is this
you?
too much? Okay. So before the incidents, weeks before, months before the incidents of the thing I sent you,
Mm-hmm.
the night we get back to my place, can I tell you this? Tell me to stop. Tell me to stop. Stop?
Yeah, because you want to stop, but you don't know how.
I don't know how, and I kind of want to tell because it is funny, but I'll stop.
Oh, Jason. What are we going to do with you?
Maybe we'll save it for Tuesday. If you remind me, I'll because it is kind of funny what happened. I think I told you this like in real life, like behind closed doors, part of the story, because it is like stupidly stupid, funny.
Really stupid.
Because it's one of those things that I felt like Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon. Like I'm too old. Shit.
You're never too old, Jason.
Like, I don't know who you think I am. But everything you're asking me for right now is well beyond my age range. But yeah, okay, we'll stop. I'm sure there'll be several Code Brown and Jason's a simp comments, which I'm okay with. I'm totally fine with. I am owning my. What is the proper word for what I am in this? Like a sucker?
I believe the word is harami.
What does that mean?
It means you're all about that haram life.
What does that mean?
It means what you're into is forbidden. Jason, you're having a middle-age crisis. That's what Midi Doctor says.
Yeah.
Vicky Clee wants you to think of Branko. Branko's name is linked to this story now, Jason.
Poor Branko. Can you imagine the people at Jacobin? We saw you were on that TIR show, and
don't do that again. Would you like to keep your job?
Branko, do you value what we do here at Jacobin? That's how Boskar talks when he's about to fire someone. Do you value what we do here at Jacobin?
That's horrible. Yes, Boskar, I do.
Why would you then sully the name of this reputable magazine by going on that, dare I say, ghetto show where they made poop jokes? Talked about hooking up. It's not what we do here.
Jacobin is highbrow.
Jacobin is highbrow. You are messing around in King Magazine territory.
Magazine.
This isn't Johnson Publications here, Branko.
Oh my God.
Do you see a Jacobin beauty of the week? No.
No, if Pascal was here and he saw what Jason wrote in the chat, he would have a reaction, and he would be laughing.
He would be in tears, and he would be trying to figure out the mechanics of it all.
What are the logistics?
How would it happen?
That?
Or he would have a story of something similar happening to him.
Ooh, oof, oof.
I mean, the 90s were a wild time.
Yeah.
Jack.
Can't pretend Pascal was innocent.
He's out there body jacking with wild shit. You know what I did do last night? Before we go, I'm going to save, so I do have a house guest, and somehow we were talking about like rap music.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, you've never seen Fly By Night?
No. No.
Yep. Yeah, Dusty, this isn't a Sublé show, Branko. It's TIR, brother. We get in the crevice. Mind. God. My house guest saw Fly By Night and then chased that with Fear of a Black Hat.
That is quite a double feature.
There's I hadn't watched Fly By Night since we watched it on movie night, and I get mad at the same scenes. Like, that movie made me so angry.
It's so stupid.
There's just scenes in that movie. We don't sell drugs to people in our neighborhood. We sell them to white people. What? You must not be a good drug dealer. Kind of have a captive audience in front of you. You're gonna fucking wait for white people to drive around the Bronx? And why is there a fucking trans barbershop quartet singing by that fiery garbage can over there?
Why are they always in front of a garbage can that's on fire?
Garbage can. And I'll take.
See you at the crossroads.
I was like, what the fuck? My house guest was the one that made the comment about a barbershop quartet. So living just for the city. Just for no reason. No reason at all. Just to,
just to do it.
Just for the city, I'm living. And you're like, whoa. That ain't cool. Yeah. So watching that movie for the fourth time, and I had to explain to the person, I was like, I watched it while going to sleep, and I didn't believe what I saw was real, so I watched it again. And then the Zionist showdown at the label signing is still my, like.
Yeah, that was just odd.
Like, as a person that signed a fair share of like little bullshit record deals, the last thing people talk to you about is like the politics of your music.
Right.
Nobody cares. It's like, here's the deal. This is what you get. This is what we get. This is how long it's going to take, us to break even.
Right.
It's not, no one's sitting there, telling you about what does he say in the movie? Jewish Americans are the only thing keeping Israel alive.
Oh, wow.
When was the last time you black people donated to Nelson Mandela? Still. Oh, and then we paused when they showed Daryl Mitchell's whole hog.
I didn't see it.
Wow, it's effed up. You didn't see it?
I didn't see it.
Watch it again. It is on YouTube.
That's true. It is, right?
Fly By Night. For those of you that haven't seen it, watch Fly By Night. It is the worst, best hip hop movie of all time, filled with rap lyrics that I still don't understand. When my house guest heard the rape rap,
you don't even have a human face. Ooh, wait.
the look on their face of shock and awe.
Yeah.
I kept going, yep. I just kept pointing the screen. I was like, yep, that is a rape rap. I am not a member of the human race.
That's what it was.
You'd be surprised how many people love the crack.
That is where that's from. It's from that fucking movie.
You'd be surprised. There's so much in the movie that didn't make any sense.
No sense at all.
Those people would not be in a group together.
There's a scene where, I don't know if you remember, where the black guy, when he leaves his family, that also baffled my guest as well. Like, why does he leave it? I was like, to chase the rap.
Chase the rap.
You know, you've never had a dream and figured if you don't live out your dream, you're going to beat your family. Like, that was his excuse for chasing the rap, if you remember. He was like, you know, if I don't chase this dream inside of me, my hands is going to get restless. I'm just going to start beating on my wife and kids. I was like, word? That's what happens?
Mm-hmm.
Nigga, you were like 30 years old and now you want to start rapping?
I'm unfulfilled inside. Now I have to beat my wife and
Now I gotta
child.
beat my wife and kid. Like, you just now decided you wanted to rap?
Mm-hmm.
And then the stabbing of the little boy at the concert. That is one of them. Or they don't understand, like people that wrote the movie don't understand what it means when you throw shoes on the light post. Yeah, they didn't know. They thought it was like a rite of passage.
It means different things.
Oh, in New York, it's a rite of passage?
I don't think.
It means seasons have changed, like whenever leaves are turning. Yay!
Oh, now.
Put your Jordans on the power lines.
That's actually the cover of the new Jacobin.
Are you effing with me?
I'm serious. It's the new Jacobin is a rack at 20.
Mm-hmm.
And it's some combat boots on a power line.
Nigga, what?
I know.
No, my brother.
Branko, do you understand that the new Jacobin? We don't view shoes on the power line the same way as these people.
Branko, do you understand?
We're more of a fly-by-night magazine. These are some menace to society Negroes that you're dealing with.
Oh my God. The idea of Oscar sitting somebody down and saying
like this. Branko, when I started this magazine, I had a dream. I've almost fulfilled this dream, but then you've come along and you decided to fuck it all up, Branko.
Yep.
It's like the Al Capone scene in The Untouchables.
Decided to fuck it all up. Branko. It took years to build. You in one
years to build this.
Did you freeze? Or did I freeze? There you go. You froze. There you go. Are we back? Oh, that was weird.
Yeah, I think it's your internet. I think that's the internet telling us that it's time to go.
That might be what it's saying.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us, everybody. I want to play Sinead O'Connor on the way out because I really love Sinead O'Connor. Oh, I threw my phone too far. I can't do it. Can't do it. I threw my phone. Rest in peace,
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah.
Listen to her records. She made records well after she ripped up the picture of the Pope. And there's some really interesting quotes. People send me some interesting quotes from her. You know, I posted a picture of a more recent picture of Sinead O'Connor. I kind of hate when you're immortalized in your youth, especially when you had a career afterwards. You know, I don't know. And someone was asking about the trajectory of her career. And she kind of, I'm paraphrasing, but the hit for her was kind of accidental. And after the backlash of ripping up the picture, it forced her to do more live stuff and just go out and tour and perform, which is what she loved doing anyway. So she was like, kind of, you know, it effed up the record labels and it effed up what you thought I was, but it didn't F up my life because this is what I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a performer. I like doing my thing. I like saying what I want to say. I think your voice as an artist should be more than just, you know, pop music nonsense and stand up for what I want to stand up for. I appreciate that. I've always appreciated that about her. Again, my favorite song of hers is a song she does on Massive Attack's album, 100th Window, A Prayer for England. I think it's an excellent song. And, you know, if you've never heard it, I guarantee the moment you hear the opening note, you're just going to like grab you. And then when you hear that voice, you'll be taken away.
I gotta check that out. That's our
Oh
homework.
yeah, that whole album, you know, I think from start to finish is
okay. You're asking for a lot now.
Well, I'm wearing a Portishead shirt, so you know who you're dealing with here.
Check out the Sinead Massive Attack.
Sinead Massive Attack. I would love to. Should I play it and we just say F it?
No.
Will the people support us if I play it?
No.
They won't support us is what you're saying?
I'm not saying they won't support us.
I think you're saying that.
Don't do it. It's not worth it.
No, my brother.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Damn it. All right. That makes me sad. I wanted to play it.
Makes me sad too.
Just our luck, YouTube will pull the whole episode.
They will.
I mean, the best that happens, yeah, because every champagne room, not monetizable.
Thank you, Andrew Mulhern.
What Andrew Mulhern says, I am the people and I support it. Again, I would love to play it, but I know it's just not gonna end well for us if we play it.
We'll be punished for it.
We will be punished for it.
We will have other opportunities to honor Sinead.
You know what? Let's play some Sinead O'Connor on the Champagne Room for Tuesday.
That sounds good.
We'll have a Sinead fest. My first time hearing Sinead O'Connor, I stayed up too late and I watched that Lay 'em on, put 'em on me song she did with MC Light.
Oh.
MC Light was like 17 when she did that.
Wow.
And then you know what MC Light went on to do? That shitty fucking movie, Fly By Night.
Fly By Night.
Good night, everybody. Peace.
Peace.